Hey, Indy Mogulers, I'm Griffin, here with Ted.
Hey,
in Los Angeles.
We are here in LA, and we have a studio. So I'm about to head off to NAB.
Sadly, I won't make it to NAB with you, so I'm kind of curious to hear about what are some of the things we're excited to see in the next week.
Absolutely. So a lot of the announcements just came out, so we're gonna break them out and talk about what I think and what you think are really kind of the biggest releases.
Yeah.
And then also discuss what it means to the industry as a whole so that you know all the biggest news. So let's do this.
Yeah. If you download the latest version of After Effects, you're gonna see a new feature called Content Aware Fill. Do you know what this is, Ted?
No, I just saw one video about this from the announcement, but basically, I think Content Aware Fill, it comes from the Photoshop world.
Yeah. In Photoshop, you can just select something and hit like Shift Delete or Control Delete.
And what it'll do is it'll use kind of the area around it to try to fill in what it thinks it should be there.
And it works super well.
It does work super well. So if you got a grassy field and you got like a dog there, you can just circle around the dog and the grass fills in and all of a sudden it looks like one clean grassy field.
Yeah. Oh, lots of traffic.
Okay. Whoa!
What? Well, in a way, this sounds like it should work even better than Content Aware in a photo because there's more information. They talk about how it's using temporal information. It can look at frames later and before and say, well, I don't see a car on this road later, so I kind of know what the road looks like without a car.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so it has more data that I can pull from, so it should theoretically be able to do a better job of filling in that content.
Yeah, I've shot a lot of films for companies where maybe they want to show off their product, but someone else's product is on the shelf, and of course they want to get rid of that logo. And so I could definitely see that content aware feature that I'm using all the time in Photoshop. In fact, my workflow now is to take the images out of Final Cut into Photoshop and do the content aware magic, but now I could do it all right in After Effects.
Canon released a new line of Canon cinema glass called the Sumire. It's a Japanese name, of course. Basically, the idea here is that they're saying that they've got extremely creamy skin tones. They're kind of going for something that looks to be trying to compete against that Cook look.
Yeah.
And the reason that's so important is that in cinema glass, actually I had a buddy at Leica explain this to me, there's sort of a scale, generally speaking, between how sharp and how creamy your lenses look. Again, your lenses create kind of a different image from your actual camera. So what we're talking about here is that generally speaking, Cook lenses tend to be a little bit creamier, a little bit softer, and it actually takes a little bit of that edge, that sharpness that we're getting from a lot of digital cameras these days. Because cameras are so sharp, now people are looking to lenses that are a little bit softer and try to
associate that sharpness with video and creaminess with
film. So to get back to that film look, a lot of people are trying to choose creamy, soft glass. And in this case, people usually go for that Cook look. In the middle, you've got Leica, and then at the high end, you've got Zeiss. Again, there's variation between each different line of lenses, but generally speaking, it looks like Canon's actually trying to release something that's able to compete with the Cook lenses over here. The thing is the price is really similar to an actual Cook S4 kit. But that being said, it seems to be a little bit faster. It goes all the way down to a T13. Personally, I'm not super interested in it because it's just so expensive. And again, I think mostly this is gonna be rental houses that are buying this kind of gear. But I do think it's interesting to see that there is a competitor going up against Cook in this space.
Yeah, I live in the camera bodies that cost $1,500 to $2,000 world. So the idea of spending $8,000 on glass terrifies me.
Yes, absolutely. Do you ever use cinema glass in your work?
I've used them a couple times. I've borrowed them or rented them, but I keep coming back to regular old native photography lenses because I like to rely on push to autofocus. I trust the camera to use electronic focus, and I'm not a manual focus guy.
Gotcha.
In the last month, Blackmagic announced the Ursa Mini Pro G2. So this camera sounds like the camera I would rent for slow motion shoots, because not only can it do 120 frames per second in 4.6K, but if I drop down to 1080, this can do 300 frames per second.
Absolutely. This seems to be like a direct competitor to the Panasonic EVA1 and the Canon C200. It's kind of like a starter Pokemon thing where you gotta pick which one you want, because here's the thing, right? So the EVA1 shoots obviously at a higher resolution, 5.7K, so you get a higher resolution. The C200 has that dual pixel autofocus, which the other cameras do not have. And then finally, the Blackmagic camera here can actually do slow motion at a better resolution than really any of the other cameras. So I'm pretty impressed with this camera.
You've said you're worried about Blackmagic in terms of ergonomics and...
Yes.
What do you think about the quality of the picture that comes out?
Up until this point, we haven't been that impressed with the Blackmagic cameras, but we can see what the actual footage looks like. We can see what we think here. Actually, it looks pretty good.
I mean, everything looks good in sunlight.
No, but I'm impressed with just the tonal range of it looks really nice. So this right here obviously seems like an example of the Blackmagic RAW being used, being able to get that higher dynamic range. That looks nice. This dynamic range looks fantastic.
Ted, I will read this next headline, but you may have to help me decode it because I don't think I know what most of these words mean.
Cool, let's do it.
Kinefinity, don't know what that is. Kinefinity releases the Kine EF, don't know what that is. It's a micro OLED 1080 monitor for the Terra Mavo. I don't know what Terra Mavo is either.
Good, sounds good. So a lot of people don't know about this company, Kinefinity. I'm actually pretty excited about them, and here's the reason why. So they've actually been around for a long time, but they just got all the details wrong in the beginning, and they weren't great. And I think a lot of people out there will say that they're still getting the details wrong. This NAB, they're releasing a new firmware update for their cameras. They're releasing an EVF, the Kine EVF. And then they're also releasing a new 7-inch ultra bright monitor, which they're all releasing in NAB, which to me says they're starting to fix the problems and the details are starting to get right. So for me, it's interesting because, hey, if you can't afford a red, there may be a more affordable option coming out pretty soon.
Are you invested in Kinefinity?
No, I'm not invested in
Kinefinity.
I have no stake in Kinefinity. You look around the market, right? You look around the market, and there's two things that can make a camera company cheap or an accessory company affordable. And it's one is not being traditional and pricing for indie users. That's one way. And the second thing is just manufacturing in a cheaper country. So basically, we are seeing, again, Blackmagic is a great example. They're Australian, but they're super affordable because they are pricing for the indie market. And their whole goal is to be disruptors.
Yeah.
And then you also see companies coming out of China that are much more affordable because it's obviously just cheaper to produce things there. So it seems inevitable that there will be an affordable Red or Alexa at some point. And there's a good chance it'll come out of Asia. It doesn't have to.
Yeah.
It could be Blackmagic, which Blackmagic is coming out and releasing these insane specs for insanely affordable prices. And yes, the details, are they there right now? Or are they going to get there in the next 6 months? No. But it's like shooting film and saying digital's not coming, you know? Right. There will come a time where someone is going to price a high-end cinema camera for the indie owner-operator circle. And you might say that's Red. You might say Red's too expensive. I think there's a lot of people watching YouTube videos that think Red's too expensive. So,
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on, we're going to juicy insider knowledge.
Ooh.
I know you're probably taking a lot of Aputure stuff with you to NAB.
Yes, indeed.
Surely there's something.
I'm not going to talk too much about it, but there's going to be a equivalent, something to compete with the SkyPanels S30 that should be affordable for indie filmmakers. We're not talking about some cheapo plastic thing too. It should be a heavy-duty, high-end studio light that everyone can afford. But moving on, what have you heard? Juicy insider knowledge.
Someone was saying something about the Zoom F6?
So I heard a little bit about this too, not announced yet, but it sounds like Zoom is releasing the F6, which is 32-bit float, which is something I had to learn actually.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
What does that mean? So basically, when you record audio, you've got 24 and 32-bit. Basically, 32-bit is almost like resolution in the way that you have more detail in the actual audio that you're recording. But it's also like dynamic range in that you actually get a wider sensitivity of audio.
Yeah.
So 32 versus 24. So what that means is that your chance of clipping is actually far less because you have more dynamic range. And float, which I didn't realize, float actually means that it's basically the same as like a dual ISO on a camera.
Right.
You can record, it'll record at 2 different sensitivities, and it'll actually pick which sensitivity to actually use and actually meld the two together. Which is exciting for a guy like me because sometimes I talk really quiet, sometimes I talk really loud. I don't know. Sometimes I can't control this stuff sometimes, and that kind of technology is important for me.
Yeah. You know what feature I hope that Zoom does not take out of their recorders?
Yeah.
Is I always want it when you turn it off to say goodbye, see you.
I love that feature. It's like a little warm feeling in my heart when Zoom says goodbye.
Goodbye, see you.
Goodbye, see you. Well, that's the end of the video, so goodbye, see you, unless there's anything else we're missing.
Wait, of course, there's one more thing.
What's the thing we're missing?
The Ari Alexa Mini.
All right, let's go through the specs on this real quick. Looks like raw up to 4.5K, 40 frames per second, built-in motorized ND filters. Gonna be totally honest, kind kind of bored because everyone saw this coming. We knew that this was going to come. The Arri Alexa LF got announced last year. Everyone was just waiting, and this is the day that for all of you Alexa Mini owners out there, this is the day you've been dreading for. I'm sorry, it's come. The new camera's out.
You're saying people should have already sold it by now.
Yes, and realistically, they should have sold it probably about 6 months ago. And I think, the thing that people hate Red for all the time is that they release a camera, people buy it, and then they release a new one a year later. And yes, that's sad. And for a lot of people, I think that's the reason why they buy Alexa cameras, because spec-wise, again, they're not the most impressive cameras, but that color science and the color space, and there's a visual quality to it that people love, that feels timeless. So, again, I hope you got a good bang out of your buck with your Alexa Mini, because again, you had it for 4 years and there was no better camera than it for 4 years.
And that's just the nature of the camera industry, that they're always gonna come out with new work. And guess what? Your audience will still like the film that you shoot this year on your old Alexa
They will,
Mini.
if your story's fun. But again, if you're looking to invest in a new camera, this could be a solid bet, because I don't think Ari's going to release a new version of this camera for a long time. They do a good job of protecting their users like that. It's not like the... Is this our real goodbye now? Are we finally saying goodbye for
Now
real?
we can say the words goodbye.
Cut to
see
black.
you.
So if you like this episode, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Again, there may be some new releases in between now and NAB actually happening, because, again, this video is being recorded before NAB, but most of the big releases from NAB usually get announced beforehand. So,
And you're gonna be there, so let us know in the comments if there are things you wanna see and hear about, and maybe Ted can go ask some questions.
absolutely, you can go check out some things. If you got any questions about things that you want to get more information on, we can go see and check that out for ourselves. I'm Ted from Indy Mogul.
I'm Griffin. Until next time.
See you next time.